The PlayStation 3 4.92 Jailbreak has finally arrived. It works on every model of the Fat PS3 and every Slim from model 2000 through 2500. Be sure to connect your PS3 to the internet and have access to a USB-A drive before starting the guide. Fire up your PlayStation 3 and your PC. You're about to level up your setup. Everything you need to download to get this done is in this single all-in-one zip file. I have it linked for you in the video description and hosted on my website. You'll find the video guide that you're watching right now on this page, along with some recommendations for some USB-A drives that work on the PlayStation 3, some basic instructions for downloading the file and what to do with it, and you'll find a green button with the download link. To grab the all-in-one zip file you need, click the green download button shown here on screen. Let's take a look at what's in the file you just downloaded. Open up a new instance of File Explorer, and then open up your Downloads folder. Inside your Downloads folder, you'll find this .zip file. You'll need to extract the contents to be able to use them. Right-click, select Extract All, and you can extract to its default location. Once you have the zip file extracted, you don't need the zip file anymore. Right-click on it, and delete it to send it to the recycle bin. And remember, anything you send to the recycle bin is still archived for you there in case you need it. Go to the newly uncompressed folder and double-click into it. Inside this folder, you'll find two things. The first one is a folder labeled PS3, and you'll also find a format tool for formatting large volume USB drives. For now, I'm going to drag and drop this File Explorer window over to the left side of the screen and then snap it into place. Insert a Type A USB drive into a USB port on your computer. Once the File Explorer window for the USB drive appears, I'm going to grab that window and then drag and drop it over to the right side of the screen and snap it into place. Before you go formatting anything, make sure that you have identified the drive letter assigned to your USB drive by Windows. Once you've properly identified the letter associated with your USB drive, you can close out that File Explorer window. To format your USB drive, double-click on the GUI Format application in the all-in-one package. Then, at the UAC prompt that appears, click Yes to continue. Before you try to format anything, make sure that you close out any open instances of File Explorer. If you have any File Explorer windows open, GUI Format will not be able to format the USB drive that you plugged in and have properly identified. Take a look at this drop-down underneath the drive label near the top left of the window. You need to make sure that the drive letter shown here matches the drive letter of your USB drive. If it doesn't, make sure to click the drop-down and select the proper drive letter for the USB drive that you plugged in. If you don't, you might end up formatting something you don't want to format, like, your Windows boot drive, and well, that's gonna suck. To format your drive, come down to Start near the bottom right corner of the window and click on it. Then at the confirmation prompt that appears, click on OK to format your drive. The process should take only a moment and your drive will be formatted in FAT32 format. You're done with the tool at this point. Come down to Close in the bottom right corner and click on it to close out the tool. Remove the USB drive from your computer and insert it into the rightmost USB port on your PlayStation 3. Power on your PlayStation 3 and take a look at the cross-media bar. It's worth taking a moment to make sure that the USB drive you have plugged in is recognized by the PS3. All you have to do this is use the D-pad on the controller to slide over to the Photo tab. If you scroll down a bit here, you'll see the name of your USB drive listed here. If you don't see the name of your USB-A drive here in the Photo tab, you'll need to switch to a different USB-A drive that is shown in the tab before proceeding. Once you install custom firmware on your PlayStation 3, you don't want an official system software overwriting it. Go to the Settings tab, then scroll down 5 times until you get to System Settings and select it with the X button or the circle button for systems outside of North America. The first menu item you'll see inside this submenu is Automatic Updates. Make sure that this is set to Off. Otherwise, an official system software could possibly overwrite your custom firmware in the future. While you're still in System Settings, it makes sense to turn off the Display What's New option. Scroll down with the D-pad until you get to the menu setting that says Display What's New. Press the X button to pull out the sidecar menu, then use the D-pad to change the highlight from On to Off, then press X to select Off. It just takes out an extra step every time you restart or power on your PlayStation 3 to load the cross-media bar. Press the circle button to go back one level in the menu system back to the Settings tab. You'll need to make sure the date and time is set correctly on your PlayStation 3. Scroll down until you see Date and Time Settings and press the X button. The very first setting in the submenu allows you to set the date and time. Select Date and Time with the X button and I recommend that you set the date and time over the internet, as it will give you the most accurate date and time information for your system. Scroll down to Set via Internet and select it with X. However, there's still one glaring problem here. At the time I've recorded this video, daylight savings time is in effect for the East Coast of the United States. If you find yourself in this situation, you need to manually go down to the listing that says Daylight Saving and select it with X. Then come down with the D-pad to the listing that says Daylight Savings and select it with the X button. This will adjust the date and time properly for your region. The majority of the process of installing custom firmware comes through making modifications to your system through the internet browser. Navigate through the list of choices at the top of the cross-media bar until you get to the listing that says Network. Then scroll down to the listing with the D-pad to Internet Browser and select it with the X button on your controller. To give the internet browser the best chance of success at helping modify your system, you'll need to take care of cleaning out some key things. Press the triangle button on your controller and it will pop out a sidecar menu in the browser. Everything you're about to do comes from pressing the D-pad up twice to highlight the word Tools and then selecting Tools with the X button. Inside the Tools sub-menu, use the D-pad to scroll the highlight down to the listing that says Confirm Browser Close. Once you have it highlighted, press the X button and it will pop out another sidecar menu with two options. You want to turn this off because the browser needs to be able to close itself if necessary throughout the process. Press triangle again to open up the sidecar menu. Use the D-pad to scroll up to Tools and select Tools with the X button again. This time we want to change the default home page to blank. Scroll down to Home Page and select it with X. You'll see a pop-up menu appear with a list of choices. To change from the original PlayStation page to a blank page, scroll down to the listing that says Use Blank Page and select it with the X button. Once you have this locked in, scroll down to the bottom to the OK button and select OK with the X button to go back to the web browser. Press triangle, scroll up to Tools, select it with X. There are 4 things that you need to delete out of your web browser moving forward. First up, from the Tools submenu, scroll down to the listing that says Delete Cookies and select it with X. Then at the confirmation prompt that appears, slide over to Yes with the D-pad and select Yes with the X button. Once again, press the triangle button, slide up to Tools with the D-pad and select it with X. Scroll down in this submenu until you get to the listing that says Delete Search History and select it with X. Once again, at the confirmation that appears, slide over to Yes with the D-pad and select it with the X button. Press the triangle button, scroll up to Tools, select it with X. This time, scroll down to the listing that says Delete Cache and select it with X. Once again, at the confirmation that appears, slide over to the left to Yes and select Yes with the X button. One more to go. Press the triangle button, scroll up to Tools, and select it with X. The last listing here is called Delete Authentication Information. Scroll down to it and select it with X. Then at the confirmation prompt, slide over to Yes with the D-pad and select it with the X button. Once you have all of these tasks complete, you're done cleaning up your browser. Press the circle button to close it to go back to the cross-media bar. Squeaky clean. You're ready for step 1 of the custom firmware install process. Go back into the internet browser by selecting it with the X button. You'll need to access a specific website. To do this, press the Start button to show the on-screen keyboard. You can backspace over the existing About Blank message by pressing and holding the square button on the controller. Then enter in the following web address, ps3toolset.com, ps3toolset.com. To go to the website, press the Start button on your controller twice. Then be prepared to stare at this white screen for a little bit. I just wanted to show you this and leave it in the video specifically because I don't want you to feel like if you're staring at this white screen that something's gone wrong or that you need to start over. It takes about 20 seconds or so to load the PS3 Tools website, but once it does, you'll see this. When the website first loads, you'll be asked to install and run a plugin. You absolutely want to every time you see this message. Slide over to Yes with the D-pad and select Yes to run the plugin every time you see this message. You'll likely see a pop-up message telling you that the PS3 toolset wants to attempt to reload. Use either the D-pad or the thumbstick to move the cursor arrow over to the listing for Yes on the bottom right corner and select Yes with the X button. You'll likely see a series of text messages appear on screen. don't be surprised if you see it go right back to a white blank screen again during the reload process. And once again, it'll ask you if you want to run the plugin. Tell it yes again. You can likely just click the checkbox that says do not show again, but I think it's worth just making sure that the plugin is running every time that you see the message. Just think of it as good peace of mind. You'll see a series of text messages scroll across the screen. Once the scrolling messages are complete, you'll have the opportunity to donate to the project. I absolutely wholeheartedly recommend that you do. Someone once told me that we should place our money where our values are, and I value the mod scene and the community that we share together around it. I've donated both to the toolset and to the PS3 exploit team, and I hope that you'll consider doing the same. Navigate down to OK using the D-pad or the thumbstick, and select OK with the X button to continue. You'll be taken back to the loading process for the PS3 toolset on screen. Focus your attention on the bottom of the screen for a moment. The last message you'll see in the list of text scrolling by says GUI Dialog Cleanup. Once you see this, you're ready to take the next step. Let's bookmark this page because it's going to be much easier to access the next time you need it, and you'll need it again in just a moment. Press the Select button on the controller to pull up the Bookmarks option. Then select Add to Bookmark with the X button. The bookmark page will already be pre-labeled for you. Just select OK with the X button to bookmark this page into your browser. And be prepared for the probability that the entire PS3 toolset will reload in its entirety once again. And yes, you'll need to go right back through the process of loading the plugin again by sliding over to Yes and selecting it with the X button, and then letting the web page load all of the text messages again down to the bottom. And just like before, once you see the GUI cleanup message at the bottom of the list of scrolling text, you're ready to go to the next step. And that next step is to load the System Manager. Use either the thumbstick or the D-pad to move the highlight cursor up to the listing that says System Manager near the top of the screen. Then select System Manager with the X button to load this page. Just like every time you load the toolset, you're likely to see a white blank screen for a few moments. Don't panic, everything's cool, it's loading the page. Once the loading process is complete, you'll now see this. Now that this page is loaded, take a look right here. You want to make sure that the listing that says CFW compatible PS3 has a green check mark next to it. If you have a red X next to it, you'll need to use PS3 HEN rather than custom firmware, and I have a video guide to help you do that listed in the description of this video. Since you're about to patch the flash memory on your PlayStation 3 to be able to accept custom firmware, it makes sense to back up your flash memory as it stands right now. To do that, navigate to the listing that says Flash Memory with the pointer and select it with X. You'll see a drop-down appear that says Save Flash Memory Backup. You can either use the D-pad or the thumbstick to scroll down to it and select it with the X button to launch the process. You'll be asked to select the location where you want to save the backup. That's where the USB drive comes in. You'll be presented with a list of storage locations in this pop-up window, and the one you're looking for is called dev_USB000. Navigate to it using the D-pad or the thumbstick, and the cursor will automatically come down to Save near the bottom right corner. Select Save with the X button to start the backup process. Depending upon the model of PlayStation 3 you have, it will take from a few seconds to a few minutes to complete this process. Once it's done, you'll see a message on screen indicating that the process is done. The pointer should also move down to Close near the bottom of the screen. Select Close with the X button. Okay, for now you're done with the tool set, and you'll need to save a copy of that backup and load your custom firmware onto your USB drive. Press the circle button to close out the browser. In all fairness, if you leave the browser open, the website's likely to time out anyway, and you'll have to go back and load the tool set from the start either way. So you might as well go ahead and close out the browser for now. Remove the USB drive from your PlayStation 3 and put it back into an open USB port on your computer. Previously backed up your flash, but you should get it off of the USB drive and put it someplace in longer term storage, like on your computer's hard drive. Create a new folder and name it whatever you like. In this case, I'm going to name it PS3 Backup so that I'll remember what it is in case I need it in the future. You can create this folder wherever you want, and you can place it wherever you want. You might have noticed that the File Explorer window didn't automatically pop up this time when I plugged the USB drive back in. You know, because Windows 11. So if this happens to you, just right-click on File Explorer to open a new window and select this PC. You'll find the listings for your drives there, including Drive E Subscribe, which has the backup. So what I'm going to do here is right-click on this, come down to Show More Options, and select Cut. So rather than copying this over and leaving a copy here, I actually want to have it deleted off the USB drive because we're going to use it for firmware in just a moment. So I'll cut here, come to the newly created PS3 backup folder, and paste the backup from the PlayStation 3 system into the root directory of the backup folder. Perfect. Once you have the backup saved from your USB drive, you can close out the PS3 backup folder and either leave it on your desktop or put it wherever you like. I generally like to copy things from left to right, so I'm going to drag the window for the USB drive over to the right side of the screen and snap it into place here. You'll need to re-access your Downloads folder in order to get to the All-in-One folder. So I'm going to open a new instance of File Explorer here by right-clicking and opening Downloads. I'm going to move this window over to the left side of the screen and snap it into place. Go into the All-in-One folder you downloaded. Remember that you still have GUI format in a folder called PS3. I recommend saving GUI format. It's a fantastic piece of software, and Windows does not natively format volumes over 32 gigabytes in size in FAT32 format. So I'm just going to cut the GUI format file, and I'm going to navigate to my Documents folder. I have some basic apps in the Documents folder that help me demonstrate things on YouTube, and I'll save GUI format here. Once you've saved GUI format or decided not to, go back to the Downloads folder and the AIO folder inside of it. You'll see a folder here called PS3. Just like with the other files and folders, you can cut this folder, go to the root of your USB storage device, and paste the folder here. This folder already has the correct folder structure and substructure and the custom firmware file already set up for you. That's everything you have to do with your PC. You can transition over to your PlayStation 3 at this point for the remainder of the guide. Remove the USB drive from your computer and insert it into the rightmost USB port on your PlayStation 3. Back at the cross-media bar for your PlayStation 3, reload the internet browser with the X button. To reload the PS3 toolset, press the select button on your controller, navigate to the bookmark, and select it with the X button. See, isn't this much faster than having to re-enter the address manually every time? And yes, you'll have to rerun the plugin and everything else that you did previously in order to get the website to load. So go back over to Yes to authorize the plugin with the X button. When you see the donate message, go back down to OK at the bottom to close out the donate page, and let the whole thing load to the GUI message down at the bottom of the screen once again. Just like you did the first time around, move the cursor right back up to the listing that says System Manager near the top left corner of the screen, and select System Manager with the X button to load it. This time around, now that you've already completed the backup, you're ready to download the patch file that you need in order to enable your system to accept custom firmware. To do this, near the middle of the screen, you'll see a listing that says Flash Memory Patch. Move the pointer with either the D-pad or the thumbstick down to the listing that says Flash Memory Patch and select it with X. In the series of menu choices in the drop-down, look for the listing that says Load Patch via HTTP. Scroll down to it either using the D-pad or the thumbstick and select it with the X button to continue. It takes a few moments for the patch file to download. Sit back, enjoy, and let your PlayStation 3 do its magic. Once the process is complete, you'll see a new button appear that says Close near the bottom right corner of this window. If it doesn't move the pointer down to it automatically, navigate down to Close near the bottom right corner and select it with the X button to close out the downloader. Now that you've got the patch downloaded, let's apply it to your system. Right back at that exact same menu that says Flash Memory Patch, select it with the X button. This time, from the list of choices in the drop-down menu, use the D-pad or thumbstick to move the highlight all the way down to the bottom to the listing that says Apply Loaded Patch. Select this with the X button. You'll see a confirmation message pop up on screen asking you if you want to install this patch file. Well, I can't imagine what the heck you would have gone this far through the process for only to back out now. So my recommendation is to go over to Yes at this pop-up message and select it with the X button to install that patch file. The process takes a couple of minutes in real time. Just like before, trust the force and let the website do its magic. Once everything's patched, you'll see a confirmation message appear near the top corner of the screen, and you'll see the Close button appear near the bottom of the patch window. Select Close with the X button to close out this tool. At this point, you're done with both the PS3 toolset and the internet browser. Press the circle button to close out the internet browser and go back to the cross media bar of your PlayStation 3. You'll need to power cycle your PlayStation 3 in order for the patch file to take effect. You can either press the power button, or in this case, I'm just going to go over to User, navigate up to the listing that says Turn Off System, and select it with X. And at the confirmation message, I'll slide over to Yes with the D-pad and select Yes to power off the system. Once your PlayStation 3 is restarted, you can install the custom firmware on your USB drive just like you would any official system software. Go to the Settings tab on the cross media bar, and then select System Update with X. From the list of choices in this submenu, scroll down to the listing that says Update via Storage Media and select it with the X button. You should now see a listing that says you can install custom firmware from EvilNap. Scroll the highlight down to OK with the D-pad and select OK with the X button to start the installation process. So since having to watch this in real time, it'd be just like watching paint dry. This process works exactly like every other system update you've ever done to your PlayStation 3. You're just installing custom firmware this time. Once your system reboots to the cross media bar, scroll down to the bottom of the Game tab. If you see a new listing here called Package Manager, your system is officially running custom firmware. It's awesome that you have your PlayStation 3 jailbroken now, but there's one little problem. There's nothing fun to do with it yet. Let's fix that. Learn how to install mana guns on your newly jailbroken PlayStation 3 through this guide shown on screen and linked in the description and pinned comment. I'll see you over there.